I never wanted to be rich. I wanted to be loved. That's the difference nobody understands until they've lived my life. Until every smile aimed at you comes with a price tag attached. Until every "I love you" sounds like it's been rehearsed in front of a mirror, calculating what it might be worth. My name is Daniel Cross. By the time I was 34, I controlled a logistics empire worth over $2 billion. I had a penthouse that touched the clouds, a garage full of cars I never drove, and a phone that never stopped ringing with people who wanted something from me. What I didn't have was one single person who wanted nothing. It started after my engagement fell apart. Vanessa said she loved me for 11 months. Then my lawyer found the messages, her and my own business partner, laughing about how easy it was, about the wedding date she'd already picked before I'd even proposed. That night I sat alone in a $200 million apartment and realized I couldn't name one person on this earth who knew the real me. Not the company, not the numbers, me. So I did something my board would have called insane. I gave my assistant explicit instructions to tell no one. I put on the oldest clothes I owned, I stopped shaving, and I walked out of my own building into a life nobody would recognize. I told myself it was research. Really, it was survival. I spent the first week sleeping in a shelter 3 blocks from my own headquarters. Nobody looked at me twice. I stood in soup lines behind men who'd lost everything to addiction, women who'd lost everything to men, kids barely 18 who'd lost everything to nothing at all, just bad luck, bad timing, a system that forgot them. For the first time in years, nobody asked me for anything. Nobody wanted my money, because as far as they knew, I didn't have any. That's where I met Mia. She worked the early shift at a diner 2 streets over, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and a bell over the door that never quite rang right. She started leaving a to-go cup of coffee on the back step every morning around 5:30. No questions asked, no charity smile, no pity in her eyes. Just a quiet nod like she was clocking me in for a job only the 2 of us knew about. "You don't have to talk," she told me the 3rd morning, when I finally worked up the courage to say thank you. "But if you want to sit inside where it's warm, the booth in the back is always open before the rush." I sat in that booth almost every day for 6 weeks. I learned Mia was raising her younger brother alone after their mother passed. I learned she'd wanted to study nursing, but the money never lined up. So she picked up double shifts instead and told herself someday wasn't canceled, just delayed. I learned she gave away more free meals than her manager technically allowed and covered the difference out of her own tips without telling anyone. Nobody was supposed to know that. I only knew because I watched her do it, morning after morning, for people who had absolutely nothing to offer her back. She never asked me what happened to bring me low. She never treated me like a project to fix or headline to feel good about. She just treated me like a person worth 5 extra minutes. Somewhere around week 5, I stopped thinking of it as an experiment. The night everything changed, her brother spiked a fever that wouldn't break, and she didn't have the $200 the urgent care front desk was asking for up front. I watched her stand in that hallway, phone in hand, scrolling through a contact list of people who all had their own version of nothing to give. I had it. Obviously, I had it. But if I paid, I'd have to tell her who I really was. And some part of me was terrified that the version of me she'd fallen for would disappear the second the truth came out. I paid anyway. Anonymously at first, through a number she didn't recognize. Then, I told her everything. I expected her to feel betrayed, lied to, used even, like I'd been running some kind of experiment on her kindness. Instead, she just sat across from me in that same cracked vinyl booth, quiet for a long time, and finally said, "So that whole time, you were just a man who needed someone to see him." That part wasn't a lie. she was right. It never was. We took it slow after that. Real slow. Because trust doesn't rebuild itself just because the money's real now. I didn't move her into the penthouse. I didn't throw a ring at the problem. I found an apartment 2 blocks from that diner, and I learned how to be a person in her world before I ever asked her to step into mine. It's been over a year now. She still works some shifts at that diner, not because she needs to, but because she says the people there are hers. And you don't abandon your people just because your circumstances change. Her brother's healthy. She started nursing school in the fall. Tuition paid, though she still doesn't love that part. Still insists on paying me back a little every month. Which honestly, I let her do, because I understand now that pride isn't something you take away from someone you love. You protect it. People ask me sometimes if the whole thing was a stunt, some ploy dressed up as fate. It wasn't. I didn't find her because I was rich enough to fake being poor. I found her because for 6 weeks, I finally got to find out who loved the man and not the money. And it turned out, all along, somebody did.